Dennis M. Mullen, Chairman, President, and CEO of Bird's Eye Foods, Inc. Judge not by words alone. An associate whose wisdom and advice I value greatly provided me with the one phrase that's helped me most in my 25 years of the food industry. Although it's not a new or complex philosophy, I'm grateful to Kent Roberts, Vice President of Organizational Effectiveness for Bird's Eye Foods, for leading me to the mantra I now embrace. Don't judge me by my words alone. Judge me by my actions. I want our associates and any stakeholder of Bird's Eye Foods to understand that what I say, I am committed to do. This honesty in communications is a commitment we have made. It's part of an overall Bird's Eye Foods communication strategy to explain to our audiences, internal and external, why we do what we do. And while what we say may not always be what people want to hear, we've created an expectation that what we say is what we will do. In other words, we only make promises we can keep, and we keep the promises we make. Many's the time when I've met with employee groups to explain why their facility may be reducing its production, or even closing down entirely. These are tough audiences hearing tough news. It's uncomfortable news to hear, and believe me, even more uncomfortable to say, but a leader cannot just say things because they're what the audience wants to hear, or because they will make that particular group feel good at that particular moment. We must weigh our words carefully and speak the truth. We make tough decisions every day, and the reality is that they're not going to make everyone happy. That's business. The true measure of a leader, however, is the willingness to say the unpopular thing, to sometimes report the bad news, to speak the truth. John H. Myers, President and CEO of GE Asset Management Incorporated. Copy successful people. After working 33 years for General Electric, a company that many consider to be the best managed in the world, I've had the good fortune to work in an environment full of terrific role models and leaders, people like Jack Welch, Reg Jones, Larry Bossidy, Bob Wright, and GE's new CEO, Jeff Immelt. As the infamous American philosopher Yogi Berra once allegedly said, you can see a lot by just watching. Watch what other successful leaders do, how they do it, and what worked or didn't work for them. The rules of business aren't like writing a term paper in college. Plagiarism isn't a guaranteed F or expulsion. It's a best practice. Copying successful people and their ideas, emulating them, and improving upon them is a strategy we shouldn't be embarrassed about. There aren't too many original creative thinkers in business like Thomas Edison, Bill Gates, or Henry Ford. I know I'm certainly not one of them. There are, however, many successful business people that we can all learn from. For example, in 1988, a friend referred a 68-year-old man to me in hopes that GE's pension fund would invest in his startup golf company. I agreed to meet with him, and I can remember thinking that I should be courteous because of the connection to my friend, but I had already decided that I wouldn't invest. After all, who would back a 68-year-old who had been passed over for the top job at Burlington Industries 15 years earlier and who had dropped out of the corporate business world to start a winery in Southern California? And who would invest in the golf club industry where few people, if any, had ever made any money? All that changed when Illy Calloway walked into my office carrying a set of golf clubs over his shoulder. I proceeded to listen to his business plan and then recited all the reasons, which I had prepared before the meeting, why I couldn't invest GE's money in his company. Illy wouldn't take no for an answer. He rebutted my points one by one and convinced me to do some more research on both him and his ideas. The rest is history. I gave Illy $4 million for a majority interest in Callaway Golf, and Illy went on to create the world's #1 golf company from scratch. He proved to be a marketing genius, attacking a market saturated with products that were branded differently, but all essentially clones of one another. Right from the beginning, he priced his product at the top of the line and kept Callaway's distribution away from the discounters to create and maintain demand. When I questioned this practice, he told me that once you establish a perception of a discounted pricing strategy, you can never change it to a premium-priced brand. He initiated a distinguished golfers advisory board consisting of high-profile, well-known people like Sam Nunn and Jack Welch, whose only responsibility was to play with his clubs and provide feedback to him on how the product performed. Of course, having Callaway clubs in the hands of these distinguished people created visibility for its products and word-of-mouth advertising for free. Soon, Callaway clubs were featured in the golf pro shops of some of the country's most prestigious country clubs. I could go on and on with story after story about this incredible man, but the biggest lesson I learned was that the most important ingredient for a successful investment is people. GE didn't invest in a golf club company. It invested in Neely Callaway, a man with a vision, a passion to develop it, and an unwillingness to accept no for an answer. GE's original $4 million investment eventually returned hundreds of millions to its pension fund, and some great personal lessons in business from an extraordinary entrepreneur. Another terrific teacher was Dale Frey, a 40-year career GE veteran for whom I had the privilege of working in 3 different businesses representing more than half my total years with GE. He retired from GE as president of GE Asset Management in 1996, and I was selected to succeed him. In 1977, however, I had just returned from 3 years in Italy working for a GE subsidiary. Dale was the chief financial officer for all of GE's international businesses, and he offered me a position as a manager, business analyst, reporting directly to him. There was only one catch to the job offer. I had to shave my mustache, cut my hair, and get rid of the cowboy boots before coming to work. I readily accepted, and Dale and I quickly developed a close and candid business and personal relationship. Dale was an aggressive, motivated leader with great business instincts, and he always encouraged an open dialogue with the people who worked for him. His tough, rough exterior was intimidating, and he was nicknamed the Bear by the organization. He was proud of the nickname and thought it stood for Grizzly Bear, but I always felt it was more like Teddy Bear because of his deep compassion and sensitivity for the people who worked for him. Shortly after I began, we debated the pros and cons of a new business policy Dale wanted to implement across the international organization. I was on one side of the issue and Dale was on the other. We debated it between ourselves, tempers flared as they sometimes did, and Dale finally made his decision and overruled my objections. He was the boss, and that was that. Next subject. The following week, we held a meeting with all the regional division CFOs, and Dale asked me to present the new policy. I started out explaining the policy, but soon was lost in a free-for-all, as the division CFOs also disagreed with it, making many of the same points I had made to Dale privately the week earlier. Finally, I acknowledged that I really agreed with them and that I didn't think the policy change was a good idea. The discussion continued until finally Dale stepped in and said he heard and understood the disagreements, but that he had made his decision and it was final. We would go forward with a new policy. After the meeting was over, Dale asked to see me privately in his office. I prepared myself for the worst. Surprisingly, Dale seemed calm. He asked me whether I had seen the movie The Godfather. I said I had. He then asked me to recall the scene where the Don, Marlon Brando, and his eldest son, Sonny, were meeting with the other families discussing whether they should get into dealing drugs. The Godfather was firmly against it, but Sonny questioned his father during the meeting and clearly showed to the other families he disagreed with his father's position. Of course, the other families saw the dissension and attempted to whack the Godfather so that they could cut a deal with Sonny and get into drug dealing. The moral of the story, Dale said, was that disagreement and debate within the family is necessary and appropriate, but dissension outside the family shows weakness to the competition. He wanted my views and independent thinking, but once a decision was made, we needed to work together and be united in implementing it, otherwise it just wouldn't get done. This story illustrates how leaders should act. They should not surround themselves with people who are not too timid to give their independent views and opinions, people who are open and candid, not a bunch of yes people who agree with everything the leader says. Within GE, we call it constructive conflict. Then, just as importantly, when a decision is made, in order for it to be effectively implemented, the leadership team has to be fully supportive and engaged to sell it throughout the organization. A leader needs to have the confidence, courage, conviction, and vision to lead. Leadership is not necessarily a popularity contest. Building consensus through success is more important than sensing what direction the wind is blowing and following it. Finally, I've had the opportunity to observe firsthand some great investment styles from some of the real investment pros of my generation. People like John Angelo, Lee Cooperman, Larry Fink, Bill Grant, Ken Langone, Julian Robertson, Art Samberg, and Faiz Sarofim. But probably the most influential investor I've known, certainly the most eccentric, is a guy whose advice and counsel I seek out every day. His name is Bernie Feshbach, and to me he's been the lost and found of Wall Street. Bernie was a World War II Purple Heart Award winner who was wounded at Okinawa. He grew up in the Bronx, and after the war, tried his hand at pig farming, oil wildcatting, selling used cars, selling women's dresses, and working as a stockbroker. He's very well traveled and very well known throughout financial circles. He always wears his bow tie and his designer suits, and he knows all the maitre d's and concierges at the best restaurants and hotels all over the world. But more important, he knows where all the hidden closets are on Wall Street and where all the bodies are buried. Bernie's about to celebrate his 40th anniversary of his 40th birthday later on this year, and as such has experienced more market cycles than anyone I know. Every deal I ever did with him or recommended by him was a success. But Bernie's real value to me can't be measured by the deals we did or didn't do. It's my having the ability to pick his brain. Bernie's never been shy in voicing his opinions to me or of me, and his thoughts are incredibly valuable. Everyone needs a truly independent sounding board, preferably one that knows what he's talking about and without a personal stake in the outcome. Every business leader needs to find a Bernie Feshbach. All of my experiences with my mentors have driven me to surround myself with the most talented and goal-oriented people with the highest integrity that I can find. I try to counsel them, advise them, teach them, and be a role model for them, but not micromanage them. To quote the person who most influenced the early years of my life, my mother, Edna May Strothoff, when describing how she raised her children, I gave them roots and then I gave them wings. Successful business leaders should follow the same simple advice. Josie Natori, founder and CEO of Natori Company. Learn from your mistakes. The poet Nikki Giovanni once said, "Mistakes are a fact of life. It's the response to error that counts." I couldn't agree more. I have always been a risk taker and a gambler at heart, and if you operate that way, you screw things up from time to time. But I don't spend a lot of time feeling regret. I've consistently learned from my mistakes, and to me, even if they're costly, and some of them have been, if I learn something new, I consider it a positive experience. Marilyn Carlson Nelson, Chairman and CEO of Carlson Companies. Illegittimi non carborundum. Perseverance, never ever giving up, is the final line of our Carlson Credo, our family's guiding principles. Whatever you do, do with integrity. Wherever you go, go as a leader. Whomever you serve, serve with caring. Whenever you dream, dream with your all. And never ever give up. My own personal and business life is rife with instances where hanging on to a plan, a hope, or a dream, in some cases just a little longer than one's competitors, resulted in success. After all, it's not the final blow that breaks the rock, but all the others before it. This approach helped my father build our business in 60 years, from an unknown trading stamp company founded on a borrowed $55 into a global organization that nets $20 billion and operates popular brands like Radisson Hotels, TGI Fridays Restaurants, and Carlson Wagonlit Travel. Today, my father is gone, but his advice lives on, inscribed on a bronze statue for which he posed on the occasion of our company's 50th anniversary. The night before casting, the sculptor called him and asked him what advice he would like to leave for future generations. The sculptor wanted him to write on the back of the statue for all time. Without hesitation, my father wrote the following, Illegittimi non carborundum, which is Latin for, "Don't let the bastards grind you down." Don Nigbor, Chairman and CEO of Benchmark Electronics Inc. Keep your options open. More than 20 years ago, when I was a young department manager, my mentor told me this. In a given situation, do not rely on a single solution to solve a problem. Develop a parallel path that could be used in the event the original solution does not come to bear. Jim O'Connor, Chairman and CEO of Republic Services Inc. Mind your own money. Once I was negotiating a business deal, the person with whom I was negotiating gave me some straight common sense advice. He said, "Jim, don't worry about my money. Worry about yours." Gene O'Donovan, president of Montana Mills Bread Company. Follow the money. I follow the money. That's all I care about. That's what I do. I heard these words in a gangster movie or documentary, straight from the boss's mouth. And in raising money for my company and then selling it to Krispy Kreme, I followed this valuable advice. Nancy Olosky, president of Olosky & Associates, Inc. Keep it short. When I took over my father's CPA business upon his retirement at 78 years of age, he told me to always remember this. Those who say the least have the most to say, while those who have nothing to say are the ones who talk the most. I found this to be very true, not only in business but in our everyday lives. Keep it short and to the point, and you'll grab everyone's attention. When you babble, people become quickly disinterested. Jeffrey P. Orleans, Chairman and CEO of Orleans Home Builders. Get the best people, they'll do the best job. Sometimes, it takes only the simplest wisdom to steer you on the right course. At a time when I was running 2 different home building companies that were 1,000 miles apart, I had a talk with my friend Ed Snyder. As the original owner of the Philadelphia Flyers, Wachovia Spectrum, and Wachovia Center, to name a few, Ed knows a thing or two about business. He saw me struggling to run the family business in Philadelphia, started by my grandfather, and the Florida company started by my father. If I could have, I would have split myself into 2 to manage them both. What I lacked was precisely what I had been to my grandfather for years, a management team on site. Yes, a one-man team, but a resource that freed my grandfather to do what he needed to do. Get yourself the right people, the best people, Ed Snyder told me. The light bulb went on, and thanks to Ed, I had my eureka moment. I understood for the first time that even the greatest entrepreneur isn't going to get ahead without a competent organization behind him. A one-man band can play out of tune, and creativity is easily extinguished when a team isn't there for backup. I needed to find the right team. It wasn't easy. It took some trial and error. I wouldn't settle for a good management team. I demanded the best one. Years later, I look back and realize how profound Ed Snyder's simple advice was, and I have never ever regretted taking it. Vincent F. Orza Jr., Chairman and CEO of Eateries, Inc. Success comes from hard work. The guy on top of the mountain didn't fall there. Guy Osiri, co-partner and CEO of Maverick Recording Company. Never lose perspective. 4 people have given me sound nuggets of wisdom that have helped me keep business in perspective. When I was 19, I complained to David Geffen about some other people in the entertainment business who were making a lot of money and who I didn't think deserved it. David turned to me and said, "You need to be a racehorse. Do you know what racehorses do?" I answered, "They race." David replied, "No, they wear blinders. If they looked to the left or right, they would lose. Don't look to the left and don't look to the right. Wear blinders and race your own race." One day, when my Kabbalah teacher, Eitan Yardeni, asked how I was doing, I told him I needed a break. I was thoroughly exhausted, overwhelmed, and overworked. Eitan then said, "Do you know what you should do now?" I thought he was going to encourage me to take some time off, but instead he replied, "No, go work harder. Be careful what you ask for because you may get it." Eitan was right. If I ask for a break, God may hear me and I may get one, a long one. I took this advice to heart and started to work even harder. At lunch one day with my friend Ron Burkle, I shared with him my disappointment over a particular investment and what a big mistake it turned out to be. He told me, "It's only a mistake if you haven't learned anything from it." It's such a simple comment, but it helped me move on and not beat myself up for the loss. And finally, I was chatting with my best friend, Anthony Kiedis, one day, and I asked him how he was doing. He replied, "I have a roof over my head, a fridge packed with food, and good health. How bad could things be?" It may sound obvious, but it's something I find myself continually taking for granted. I consider Anthony's comments a reminder of how blessed I am. Charlotte V.M. Otley, President and CEO of C. Otley Strategies Limited, COS. Mind your own business. Minding your own business has many different meanings, but the bottom line is that you can't take care of anyone else until you have your own business in order. The mastery of minding your own business lays solely within you. Over the years, I have found that, regardless of the business or social environment, a few statements about minding your own business have been invaluable. Take care of your own affairs, or someone else will do it for you at your expense. Don't go looking for trouble, you will always find it. While you are paying attention to someone else's affairs, who is minding yours? Revenge is very time-consuming and draining, and once realized has short-term fulfillment. Be true to yourself, take pride in it, and share it. Keep your business to yourself by being a better listener than a talker. Herbert Pardes, MD, President and CEO of New York Presbyterian Hospital. Share with your superiors and learn from criticism. I was told to always bring your superiors good news. The fact that you bring good developments and outcomes to the people to whom you report serves both your interests and theirs. Implicit in this advice is that a good leader takes vicarious pleasure in the successes of his or her staff. Staff, for their part, then feel a generosity on the part of the people to whom they report, which encourages them to do good things that will be appreciated by their superiors. Leaders who conduct themselves in this way gather around them people who are successful and strong, rather than people who are weak and threatened. Also, I was encouraged to welcome criticism and suggestions for ways of improving, to look at them as opportunities to inform me and expand my perspective on issues. This advice served me well. What might be seen as critical or unpleasant can often be turned around to be highly constructive. For example, complaints from people are often dismissed on the assumption that the complainers will be unreasonable or vitriolic if contacted directly. I have found just the opposite. When the senior leader of an institution responds to people who are complaining often, it impresses other people and turns critics into friends. Richard D. Parsons, Chairman and CEO of Time Warner Inc. Take the high road. Do what's right. Jerry Perenchio, Chairman and CEO of Univision Communications Inc. Do good and laugh. Lou Wasserman at MCA/Universal told me this: always take the high road and never lose your sense of humor. Peter J. Pestillo, Chairman and CEO of Visteon Corporation. Invest in employees. The most efficient investment is in people, not machines. Give them the tools, the resources, and the training required to do their job. Clearly communicate the tasks you expect them to perform, and then presume they will do those tasks. If you have accomplished this, you will eliminate the expenses of auditing, review, inspection, and supervision. Frederick Warburg Peters, President of Warburg Reality Partnership Limited. Keep the business away from the personal. My mother recalled my grandfather, who was the CEO of Abraham & Straus department stores, saying to her, "You should never permit your business to pay for your personal expenses. There is more to business than money. You have to strive to live your life as an honorable person. My business has been extremely fair to me, and I need to be fair in return." These words have had a profound impact on me. In my own career, I wanted to continue the tradition of family integrity that my grandfather had so clearly embraced. As a result, I have never let my company pay for a meal, a taxi, or a limousine, or anything else that was not clearly business-related. What I can't afford, I don't buy. I can't think of a better way to honor my grandfather's memory. James Pignatelli, Chairman, President, and CEO of Unisource Energy Corporation. Simply make the best decision you can. 1. Don't bullshit me and I won't bullshit you, and together we might make the right decision. 2. There are only two bad decisions. A. The decision to not make a decision when there is time to make a decision, and B. A decision not to change a decision when you know that the earlier decision was wrong. 3. A decision made with perfect information is too late. Charles P. Pizzi, President and CEO of Tasty Baking Co. Talk to the workers in the trenches. Ask your employees, what do you think about our business? Stephen Plachocki, CEO of Insight Health Corporation. Never stop striving, never stop learning, never stop teaching. Growing up as a young boy in a working-class neighborhood in Detroit, my first role model was my father, a survivor of the Nazi concentration camps. Never earning more than $25,000 to support a family of 5, he taught me early on about work ethic and values. He also showed me how the human spirit could prove to be incredibly powerful when properly motivated and focused. It was these humble beginnings that set the stage for the way I would later manage business and motivate employees. While growing up, I gained a distinct understanding for people spanning all walks of life, and I knew there would be no shortcut to success. I also knew that whatever I wanted to achieve professionally had to be earned through hard work, dedication, and by developing an affinity for the people with whom I worked. As an avid athlete, I played a variety of sports my entire life, from grade school to college. I believe sportsmanship significantly contributed to my professional success and armed me with many of the tools necessary to head a large corporation. My passion for sports and my drive to win taught me the value of teamwork and setting and attaining goals. There could have been no better preparation for transitioning from the playing field to the healthcare field. Today, as CEO of a large healthcare corporation, the lessons I learned early on, some the hard way and some through advice of wise souls like my father, coaches, teammates, and former bosses, serve as the foundation for my progressive management style. At the beginning of my career, I excelled as a salesman. When a boss asked me to move and take over a new territory, I was hesitant to make the change because I had built the best territory in the company. But he advised me that the only way to grow and succeed was to step out of my comfort zone. After thinking about this long and hard, I uprooted my family from Detroit, where I was comfortable and settled, to Kalamazoo, Michigan. And when I relocated my family again in 1992 to California to aid a company on the brink of bankruptcy, I strayed from my comfort zone again. These changes taught me how to take risks and overcome fear, and I realized that I should never settle. The more you embrace change and welcome challenges, the more you overcome fear. And the more experiences you undergo, the less fear you have. I try to teach this philosophy to employees every day. I work hard to foster teamwork and create solid, collaborative relationships between senior management members and different organizational ranks. I also strive to build bridges between various departments within the company and to remain a highly visible leader. My goal is to encourage, engage, and inspire across all levels of the company. I have learned firsthand how this cohesive team approach and employee involvement can change the face of corporate America. By implementing systems that raise accountability among employees and offer incentives for good performance, we drastically motivated our team and took them all for a wild ride down the corporate restructuring path. A few years later, we all emerged better and stronger from it. I often reminisce about the specific lessons I learned, but welcome the fact that I am still learning and teaching. If we can prepare the leaders of tomorrow today by offering sound, simple advice, then we are sure to have many great successes on the horizon. Ernesta G. Prokop, President of E.G. Bowman Company, Inc. Tailor your marketing to your market. I followed this wise advice. Your product, in my case commercial insurance brokerage, is not ethnic. Therefore, your marketing strategies should be directed to economic mainstream America. Roxanne Quimby, President of Burt's Bees. Deal directly with decision makers. One of our sales representatives zeroed in on a key aspect of success when conducting a sales presentation. If they don't have the authority to say yes, then they don't have the authority to say no. Rich Rees, President and CEO of Jim Beam Brands Worldwide. Preparation paves the way. My grandfather, a farmer, told me that hard work and preparation will overcome a lot of obstacles. I've never forgotten that advice. Coming out of a 12-year professional baseball career without the cushion of a college degree, I had to prepare and work very hard. I encourage all of the scholars of the world to understand that there are very capable people who were not fortunate enough to be able to attend college. If you apply the preparation and the hard work, you will go far. But while you're striving for success, keep this sentence in mind, one that's been around a long time. I don't know the key to success, but I know the key to failure, trying to please everyone. Jerry M. Reinsdorf, Chairman of Chicago White Sox and Chicago Bulls. You are smart enough. When I was leaving home to attend college, afraid that I could not compete in a larger world than high school, My family physician said something interesting. He told me that the most successful people, which he defined as the top 10%, were not that smart. They were just not as dumb as the bottom 90%. He also told me that there was no competition at the top, but neglected to mention that there's plenty of competition on the way there. Peter G. Riguardi, President of the New York region of Jones-Lang-LaSalle. Honor your reputation. My father, Edward Riguardi, alongside whom I am fortunate to continue to work, told me this: you no longer have just a name. You have your name and whatever people say after it. As long as what they say is good, everything else will take care of itself. Richard Romanoff, CEO and President of Nebraska Land. Problems can lead to prosperity. Problems are a good thing. Any company that doesn't have its share of complicated problems probably doesn't have a very hardy business. If your problem lies with your boss, watch out. There is a danger in asking for a new SAR. No matter how bad your current boss, supplier, or business associate is, at least you know him. A new one can always be worse. But in the middle of any difficulty lies opportunity. When things are going good, no one wants change. Greet difficulty as an opportunity for creative and financial enhancement. And keep in mind that those toughest potential customers who seem impossible to crack will turn out to be your most loyal ones. Peter J. Rose, Chairman and CEO of Expeditors International of Washington, Inc. Notes on 45 years in business. In my 45 years of working, I've been given plenty of advice, some sage, some useless. My father provided some of the former. Never get so drunk at a company function that you'll regret it in the morning. Never take anything from anyone in the way of kickbacks, payoffs, bribes, and/or extravagant gifts, which will come back to haunt you, and they always do. Be honest, have integrity. No one can take that away from you. And so did baseball great Satchel Paige, although I didn't know him personally. Don't look back, something might be gaining on you. Together with these nuggets, I've scattered bits of advice and compiled a personal credo. Friendly competitor is an oxymoron. Most mergers and acquisitions don't work. Avoid scams, e.g. Y2K.com, stockbrokers, consultants. This saves money and grief. Be a mentor. Be a leader, not a boss. Don't be political on the job, but be politically aware. Be patient. Don't ever be a yes person. Stand up for what you believe in. One is never finished learning. Degrees don't matter. One must have drive, ambition, hustle, street smarts, and common sense. Computers are an assist, not a solution. Use the delete button often. And finally, remember people pull for you only on the way up. Once you've made it, they want to see you fall and stand over you saying, "I knew you wouldn't make it." Lori Scala, President of Clean Water Technologies, Inc. Love what you do. Pick a career that you really love, and then you will love what you do. And if you love what you do, you'll be successful. Joel A. Schwartz, President of Benihana, Inc. Never let a calendar or clock close a deal. When I was just starting out in my career as president of Benihana, I was deep in negotiations for a new lease transaction. The other side was putting pressure on us to conclude the transaction by a certain time, or they would walk away from the deal. I was ready to agree to their terms, however, my attorney advised me to never let a calendar or clock make a deal for me. I didn't, and we went on to make a much better and more appropriate deal for a lease than the original. Tim Sear, Chairman, President, and CEO of Alcon Inc. and Alcon Laboratories Inc. Align yourself with a company of similar values. Don't join a company or organization of any type unless you are totally comfortable with the prospect of working with the people you met in the interview process. Did you like them? Would you trust them? Does the team seem bright, positive, and destined to succeed? And whatever the financial incentives, don't commit yourself to a product, service, or profession that you won't be proud of, that you won't be eager to tell your friends and family about. You're going to spend the majority of your time making, selling, promoting, and extolling the virtues of something that you will be intimately associated with in your mind and everyone else's. Choose well. Ivan Seidenberg, Chairman and CEO of Verizon. Work hard. Someone's always watching.
When I was 18, I got my first job as a janitor in an office building in Manhattan. I was the guy who opened the door, swept the floor, polished the chrome, and ran the freight elevator. My boss was the building superintendent, an older guy named Bill. Bill hardly ever said anything, but he worked like a dog, harder than anybody else on the crew. It seemed to me that if my boss was working that hard, then I should too, so that's what I did. Once in a blue moon, Bill would actually talk to me. One day, he saw me reading a book and asked me about it. I told him I was putting myself through college at night. About 8 months later, he came up to me and said, there are companies that will help you pay for college while you work full-time. I asked him which ones. He said to try the electric or the phone company, and I did what he said, applying to New York Telephone. I started a career in communications there that's lasted almost 40 years. When I asked Billy why he took 8 months to get around to mentioning this to me, he just shrugged and said, "I guess I wanted to see if you were worth it." Your values, work ethic, and personal standards are always visible, whether you're a janitor or a CEO. I've always conducted myself in business according to that very simple rule. Work hard because somebody's always watching. R. Scott Sellers, Chairman and CEO of Archstone Smith. Personal relationships trump trophies. Spend time building relationships, not chasing accomplishments. We were created for relationships, and it is in the relationships, not in the accomplishments, that we find our fulfillment. Not only does the pursuit of meaningful relationships with others produce a more rewarding life, but it is also good for business. People like to do business with those whom they like and trust. Honest relationships lead to long-standing business partnerships and significant future opportunities. Building relationships requires a focus on the needs of others instead of ourselves. This attention to others produces strong loyalty from many different constituencies, including employees, customers, business partners, and those whom we report, all of which is good for business. The relationship-focused executive places an even greater priority and emphasis on family relationships than those at the office. Without deep, lasting relationships at home, business and financial success is of little value. Robert E. Selsam, Senior Vice President of Boston Properties. In person propels progress. To give or get a yes answer, meet face-to-face. For a no, use the phone. Mayo A. Shattuck III, Chairman, President, and CEO of Constellation Energy Group. Customer first, firm second, individual interests third. I was president of Alex. Brown & Sons, the oldest independent investment bank in the country before it was sold to Bankers Trust in 1997. A principle had guided the firm for almost 2 centuries, and it was customer first, firm second, individual interests third. This simple statement was the abridged version of a 1909 quote from John C. Brown, one of the founder's descendants. I would like to leave with those who are to follow a sense of commercial honor, an absolute fairness in all dealings, a willingness to suffer pecuniary loss if need be, rather than to tarnish by one unworthy act the good name of the firm. At Alex. Brown, we asked all employees to literally sign a value statement that included this principle. Throughout the years, I witnessed and participated in hundreds of discussions that fell back to this core value statement. It guided us through some difficult and many prosperous years. Besides protecting the firm's reputation and its relations with its customer, it also had the effect of fostering teamwork and the idea that no one individual was bigger than the firm. As we forge ahead in the 21st century, it's particularly interesting that the values set 2 centuries ago, a focus on clients' need, uncompromising integrity, and a commitment to quality and excellence, are still the fundamental foundation to success in business. Stephen B. Siegel, Chairman and CEO of Insignia/ESG Inc. Listen. Don't just wait to talk. During a presentation, conversation, interview, or a sales pitch, too many people really do not listen to what is being said to them. Instead, they are anticipating opportunities to state their case or to make their pitch. This will almost always, whether you're a manager, salesperson, or someone on an interview, fail to create a connection between you and the other person involved in the conversation. Important opportunities to pick up information and apply it spontaneously to the task at hand are lost, and the probability of success in whatever the endeavor declines substantially. Learn how to listen. Don't just wait to talk. Henry R. Silverman, Chairman, President, and CEO of Ascendant Corporation. Tell the truth. Tell it all. Tell it now. Our system of capitalism is built on the presumption of honesty, respect for the rule of law, and the assumption that institutions of stature and credibility will tell the truth. In my 38 years in business, I have gained a number of deeply practical insights, the most important of which is that in the end, you must rely upon the truthfulness of the people you are dealing with. We have all come to know that every good partnership, whether in business or marriage, is based on trust. So how do we deal with the subversion of our financial system? What do we rely upon? The answer is quite simple: our own integrity. We have an unwavering obligation to tell the truth, tell it all, and tell it now to shareholders, employees, and customers who have placed their trust in our companies. These constituents and our markets have suffered greatly from the frauds at companies like Adelphia, Enron, and WorldCom. Our responsibility as business leaders is to restore the trust, and hopefully the wealth, by building and maintaining public companies that foster candor, openness, and above all, integrity. Larry A. Silverstein, President of Silverstein Properties. Act as if the world can see how all your affairs are conducted. I was told many years ago by the man whose name I carry that it takes a lifetime to build a reputation and one foolish act to kill it, and that is our most precious possession, as we have to earn it and money cannot buy it. When I asked how we know which way to turn when in a quandary, he suggested the New York Times test. If you can't put it in bold type on the front page of the New York Times because it might embarrass you, don't do it. He added, take the high road and do what is right when dealing with people. Treat them exactly as you wish to be treated. Irina Simmons, President and Treasurer of EMC Corporation. Develop trust. Surprise lessons in one's career can occur anywhere. Mine happened during a week-long leadership development program with a number of my peers at EMC Corporation. I joined EMC as Assistant Treasurer 2 years earlier in 1995, with the responsibility for establishing and growing the Treasury function. I knew I had joined an exciting organization. In the mid-1990s, EMC had emerged as one of the hottest, most innovative companies in the information technology industry. In fact, in 1995, EMC's sales grew 39% to nearly $2 billion, and it overtook IBM as the mainframe storage market leader, a market EMC had zero share in just 5 years earlier. The following year saw another record in both market and financial performance. All of this growth and expansion brought new challenges to the treasury function. I had many new ideas I wanted to implement, and I was determined to prove to everyone that I had the smarts, judgment, and experience to be the company's treasurer, a position then held by my boss, who was also the chief financial officer. My relationship with the CFO was a bit combative at first. I was trying so hard to be viewed as the authority on treasury matters that our interactions were often argumentative. I felt that my strengths went unrecognized and that I was not progressing toward my goal. This made me angry and defensive. After sitting in the leadership development program for 2 days, listening to all the behavior styles and tactics that I thought I was already following so well but were not getting me anywhere I needed to be, I pulled aside the instructor to discuss my personal dilemma. I try hard to prove that I can handle things and that I can run the show independently, but my boss just doesn't seem to view me in the right light. What am I doing wrong, or is he the problem? My instructor looked at me and asked, "Does he trust you?" Honestly, if somebody had slapped me across the face, I would not have been more surprised or taken aback. Trust, I said? What does trust have to do with anything? I come in every day, I get my job done, I do it well. Where does trust come into this? As a young woman trying hard to prove my value to the company, I had always focused on skills like creativity, initiative, technical expertise in my function, energy, and above all, business results. The fact that it was not remotely possible that my boss did not trust me, not as a matter of honesty or ethics, but rather as a matter of how I could influence the outcome of situations or solve problems, blew me away. Once I started to examine my behavior in that context, it really made a difference. The trust needed was on a personal level, not a business level. The key to developing such trust in a working relationship is directly tied to how you interact one-on-one with others. If you maintain a defensive posture, you immediately raise questions about your self-confidence. This is a warning bell to anyone trying to believe that you can handle business issues. My style of challenging my boss was making him uneasy about my ability to handle complex, multifaceted problems. Even though I knew I was ready and fully capable of handling these situations, I clearly needed to work on how I was conveying my capabilities to my boss. While my instructor's comment surprised me, I immediately recognized that, in fact, he was right on the money. I worked on modifying my style to portray confidence and balance, not challenge and conflict. Within 2 years, not only did the board promote me to the position of treasurer, but relationships with many of my peers and superiors in executive management also took a dramatic turn for the better. It was certainly the most important turning point in my career. Del Smith, founder and chairman of Evergreen International Aviation, Inc. Be honest. Soon after my 1930 birth in Seattle, I was placed in the Sacred Heart Orphanage. Mr. and Mrs. Smith adopted me when I was almost 2 years old. Tragically, my father died shortly following the adoption, leaving me and my adoptive mother penniless. As a result, Grandma Smith, as I lovingly called her, raised me on her own. Growing up poor just made me more ambitious. I used my struggles as a launching pad, building on a strong religious value system that the devoutly Christian Grandma Smith instilled in me. My mother taught me about work ethic, success, honesty, faith, leadership, and perseverance. Integrity and honesty are so important. I think you have to be honest with your maker, honest with the people you deal with, and honest with yourself. Over the years, many MBA students have asked me whether you can be successful in the business world and still be honest. My response is always the same. You have to be honest or you won't make it. Frederick W. Smith, Chairman and CEO of FedEx Corporation. Choose a workplace wisely. Mr. Abe Plow, the founder of the outstanding company that bore his name, pointed out to me that the secret of having a good business is to be in a good business. Robin B. Smith, Chairman of Publishers Clearinghouse. Think like an owner. Many years ago, I was working at Doubleday as a group product manager in the book club. I received a call from a recruiter about a job at Charter Communications, then the holding company for the Ladies' Home Journal, Greenland Studios, Hamilton Mint, and an in-house ad agency that involved running the mail-order properties, including the house agency. My interview was with Ed Down. During the interview, Mr. Down said to me, "Your problem is that you think like an employee, not an owner. You need to think like an owner." As it turned out, I didn't take the job because Doubleday countered with an offer to make me president of the book clubs, but I have thought of Mr. Down's words often. Carmine N. Stella, President and CEO of Capital Beverage Corporation, DBA Diversified Distributors Network. Do your homework. It sounds like a parent talking to his child, but good business is as basic as that concept. Before you make a decision, proper due diligence on the subject is the most effective tool in business today. People tend to exaggerate, manipulate, and downright lie about the subject at hand. You need to research your position thoroughly and evaluate in your next move. Then, most important, you need to make a decision. You may not always be right in your decision, but you will be more right than wrong. Do your homework. Thomas G. Stemberg, Chairman of Staples, Inc. Tap underserved, unexplored markets. In 1985, when I was debating whether to start an office superstore chain or buy a grocery chain with Leo Can, I had an update meeting with Walt Salmon, my mentor and a marketing guru at Harvard Business School. He asked whether I thought I could execute groceries better than Northeast industry leaders, Shaw's or Stop and Shop. I danced around the answer. He stopped me and said something profound. "Tom, why don't you find a category that is underserved by modern distribution channels? Ideally one that is big and growing, and one you could apply your distribution expertise to, much like Home Depot and Toys R Us have done." I responded, "Well, Walter, as luck would have it, I have been working on an idea." My idea was Staples, and the office supply superstore was born. John J. Stollenwerk, President of Allen Edmonds Shoe Corporation. Always keep reaching and risking. Advice is only as good as the person divulging it. My mentor, Don Schwenk, is a great person with great advice. Don told me, "You know, John, in business and in life, you're never done. You can never just sit back and rest on your laurels." And at 63 years old, I still live by that advice every single day, with the way I run my company and how I approach life in general. One of the ways to continually advance a business is to take risks, and this can be a daunting prospect, but one must be able to take risks and try new things and even fail sometimes. Some of the most bountiful lessons actually do come from failure. If we don't keep challenging ourselves and each other, continue pushing the envelope, we run the serious risk of becoming stagnant. A company that is stagnant will eventually fail, and a person in a state of torpor isn't experiencing life to its fullest. After all, who wants to sleepwalk through life? So while the advice may seem simple, it's actually predicated on the continually choosing to do those things that are often most difficult. Thomas C. Sullivan, Chairman of RPM International Inc. Hire and cultivate talent. My father once said this: "Go out and get good people, create the atmosphere to keep them, and let them do their job." William H. Swanson, CEO and President of Raytheon Company. Guard your reputation. My dad always told me, "When you were born, you were given a good name. Return it the way you got it." I always urge Raytheon's program managers to lead their programs with the same care as if their names were on their programs. Our customers notice this. They feel the commitment. I also picked up several other valuable pieces of advice along the way that I have pressed into service many times. 1. Look for what is missing. Many know how to improve what's there, but few can see what isn't there. 2. Learn to say, "I don't know." If used when appropriate, it will be often. 3. If you are not criticized, you may not be doing much. Patrice Tanaka, CEO and Creative Director of Patrice Tanaka and Company, Inc. Share your cookies and toys was my mother's strongest admonition when I was growing up. Her words ring as true for me today in the boardroom as they did on the playground. Whatever success I've achieved in business is the direct result of sharing my cookies and toys with the 5 co-founders/co-owners who have all worked together since 1990 and with the amazing employees of our New York-based public relations agency. Together, we have built an agency that is known for creating great work, a great workplace, and great communities that work, i.e. healthy, sustainable communities. Our efforts have resulted in Patrice Tanaka and Company, Inc. being recognized as the #1 most creative and the #2 best workplace among all PR agencies in the nation, Inside PR 1998, as well as the #1 most esteemed PR agency in New York, Thomas L. Harris, Impulse Research 2000. Share your cookies and toys. W.R. Timken Jr., Chairman of the Timken Company. Listen to your ancestors. Family wisdom is everything. My great-grandfather, Henry Timken, told my grandfather this: "Above all, don't set your name to anything you will ever have cause to be ashamed of." 2 generations after Henry Timken, my father W.R. Timken told me this: "Hire the most capable people, develop them well, and let them work you out of a job." James S. Tisch, CEO of Lowe's Corporation. Inaction is sometimes the best action. Too often, business people feel a need to take action where no action is necessary. Likewise, they often feel the urge to invest, even though the time may not be appropriate. Out of this sometimes destructive pattern of reflexive action has arisen our maxim, "If there is nothing to do, do nothing." The corollary with respect to investing is, when there is nothing to buy, make sure you have asbestos-lined pockets so that money will not burn a hole in them. Preston Robert Tisch, co-chairman of Lowe's Corporation and chairman and co-CEO of New York Football Giants. Encourage and involve employees. Since my brother and I started working in a family business, we learned as we went along. We found that communications, keeping an open flow of ideas in an atmosphere of absolute candor, is most important to successfully manage people. There are few impediments to good management more serious than the universal human tendency to conceal or ignore negative information. Our goal has always been to develop mutual trust and a feeling of confidence among our employees, which would enable them to feel comfortable sharing the negative as well as the positive information with us immediately. We believe it is the first responsibility of corporate management to establish and maintain an atmosphere that invites maximum response from the employees. You cannot command people to be resourceful and imaginative, and yet those are the qualities we need most in operating management. We need to develop people who have the confidence and courage to act effectively and decisively on their own, managers who go way beyond what they are told, who act on their own sense of what can be accomplished. Motivating and involving employees is essential to building a successful business. Robert I. Toll, Chairman and CEO of Toll Brothers. Die rich. In the Apologia by Plato, Socrates says, "It is a wise man who knows his own ignorance." The other best advice I got was from my father, who admonished me that we are already rich. The idea was not to die poor. If you never lose any money, you'll die stinking rich. John M. Trani, Chairman and CEO of the Stanley Works. Execution equals success. Execution is 80% of the game. That's not generally taught in business school or in any school for that matter. In school, one learns that the grand strategy, the overarching insight, the study of the landscape, will yield true business success. Yet when examining those companies that win versus those that don't, that learning rings hollow. It reminds me of the Green Bay Packers in the Vince Lombardi era. The team ran what was termed the Green Bay sweep over and over again. The opponents knew that the play was going to happen several times a game. It didn't matter. What did matter was the execution of the play, the people doing it and the process utilized. For the same reason, business models are difficult to duplicate. That's why those who learn the art of execution win, and those who do not fail. William F. Tyree, President of the Tyree Organization. Remember, who controls the purse strings? Never forget that it is always easier to say no to a vendor than it is to say no to your bank. Charles J. Erstadt, Chairman and CEO of Erstadt Brittle Properties, Inc. Get the facts. Stock prices are opinions, but dividends are facts. So like Sergeant Joe Friday said, please just give me the facts. Jack Valenti, President and CEO of Motion Picture Association of America, Inc. Don't follow the money. Money will follow you. When I was 16 years old and newly hired rookie in the advertising department of Humble Oil Company, the boss of the department, Gardner Allen Marbury, talked to me. Marbury, a Shakespearean scholar known as Pop, said, "Jack, remember this. Never take a job just for the money, for soon, like every living organism, you'll live beyond your means and you'll probably be miserable in your job. Always strive to take a job doing something you truly love to do. If it's money you seek, it will come to you in barrels full, because if you love what you do, you'll no doubt do it very well, and folks who want the best will beat your door down to employ you." I've followed that advice, which is why in my entire working career I have always been ready to wake up in the morning, eager to start the day. I love what I am doing. It's been a great life, and only getting better. Lillian Vernon, Founding Chairman of the Lillian Vernon Catalogs and www.lillianvernon.com. Believe in yourself. It wasn't just the wisdom that my father imparted to me, it was the way he lived his life that left an indelible impression. He was my mentor, my role model, and my inspiration. I owe a large part of my success as an entrepreneur to his belief in my talent and abilities. My father took pride in owning his own business from the time I was a little girl growing up in Germany when he was a successful entrepreneur. He had the insight to move our family to the United States just before the onset of World War II, a move that ultimately saved our lives. With little money, few contacts, and limited knowledge of the English language, he started a small leather goods manufacturing company in Manhattan and made a good living. Unlike the other men of his generation, he welcomed having women work by his side, and he didn't believe that a woman should stay home if she wanted to work. My mother assisted him in his factory all day, and when I was old enough, he asked me to help. My father sensed that I had a flair for fashion, and he knew I loved to browse through the many interesting shops that lined the streets of New York City. He was developing a line of leather accessories for young women like me, so he sent me on shopping excursions in search of new designs. The leather bags and belts I chose became bestsellers. I didn't realize it at that time, but my father was nurturing my talent for merchandising. Thus, the seed was planted for what was to become my mail-order entrepreneurial venture several years later. In 1951, when I placed my first ad in 17 magazine for a personalized handbag and belt, it was my father's encouragement that inspired me, despite the doubts of others. I was newly married and expecting my first child, and my husband couldn't understand why I wasn't content being a wife and mother. Although my mother worked, she felt that I should devote myself solely to my family and concentrate on raising my child. I was growing apart from my friends, who were traditional stay-at-home housewives, since we had little in common. Through it all, my father's faith in me never faltered. My father told me I had a talent and a good idea for starting a business, and I should never let anything get in the way of fulfilling my dream, or I would regret it for the rest of my life. It didn't matter to him that I was a woman about to give birth. He believed I had to be happy, and if that meant starting a company so I could put my skills and energy to good use, then I should do it. My father also warned me that starting a business as a woman would be difficult, but I would learn and grow stronger each day. Giving up wasn't an option because he knew I wasn't a quitter. I made a pact with myself never to disappoint him. His advice and support are among the reasons my life has been blessed with success and good fortune. So don't let challenges, setbacks, or detractors defeat or discourage you. If you believe in yourself and think positively, you will succeed. Alberto Villar, founder and president of Amerindo Investment Advisors, Inc. Invest early and stick to your choice. I have spent the last 3+ decades investing in emerging electronic and healthcare technologies, both as a venture capitalist and as an investor in the first few years of the public stock market life of new companies. Over the years, I was a very early investor in a good number of the most successful companies technology ever generated, such as Microsoft, Oracle, Cisco, AOL, and Amgen. Because the technology of each of these companies was new and unproven when I invested, and because there were no real markets for the new technologies at the time the investments were made, I had to learn the hard way, which was by experience, as opposed to through advice. Over the years, I learned 2 principles of technology investing. First, be very early in investing in a new sector, and second, initiate a major investment and stick with it through all the walls of worry young companies are forced to climb due to market uncertainties, gossip, regulation, and economic cycles. Real money is made by identifying key new industrial sectors at a very early stage and then proceeding to invest in the companies likely to gain a dominant share of that sector's market. In the 1990s, my investment in Cisco and AOL increased 1,200-fold. Seth Walk, CEO of Deutsche Bank America. Don't compromise your principles. I was once told that when making a controversial or complex decision, one should always apply the following test. What would your mother's reaction be if she read about it, and your involvement, on the front page of the Wall Street Journal? Would she be proud, ashamed, intrigued, confused, happy, sad? This test has become even more relevant in light of the recent crisis of confidence that the public has in business leaders, and it must be applied across one's entire organization. Any and all decisions should be able to stand up to the light of day, following the golden rules of common sense, decency, and fairness. Decisions that compromise those principles inevitably end up bearing a cost. This might be financial loss, the loss of reputation, or the loss of a relationship, and is frequently all 3. Clients have often told me that they want 2 fundamental things from a relationship: trust and consistency. Any decision that destroys the first or undermines the second may be a decision you spend your life trying to get beyond. I have always believed that a company should be greedy for the long term. Doing the right thing consistently is the path to that end. Short-term greed is the slippery slope to irrelevance or worse, disaster. John H. Williams, Jr., Vice Chairman of Steinmart. Let good people do their jobs. When I was in my mid-20s, a new manager not long out of college, an early mentor named Frank Colhane, took me aside. He said that to be successful in management, you should surround yourself with good people and then let them do their jobs. Today, that seems so obvious, but as a 20-something new manager, I must say that it indeed served me well over the years. Dale Winston, Chairwoman and CEO of Battaglia Winston International. Seek counsel. The best way to get good business advice is to create a forum that enables you to seek counsel. In our case, as the executive search firm of Battaglia Winston International was beginning to grow, we created a board of advisors. We met with them on a regular basis and shared with them information about our business, our successes, and our failures. Founded in 1963, our national search firm began with only one office in New York. It was becoming evident to us, through the board's advice, that in order to continue to be national, we needed to open offices elsewhere. The key advice we received from our board was to take what we had done in New York and to duplicate and replicate it in other parts of the country as well as the world. Today, we have 5 offices in the United States, and through our association with the Accord Group, 36 offices throughout the world. Thanks to this advice, we are now ranked among the top 15 search firms, both in the United States and worldwide. Not only companies, but also individuals need to create an opportunity to receive advice. I have often advised executives to create their own advisory groups, to find 2 or 3 people to consult with about their own careers, and to meet with them on a regular basis. George Zimmer, CEO of Men's Warehouse. Know your value. Don't be afraid to charge enough for your products or services. About the author. Donald J. Trump is known worldwide for his business acumen. He's the very definition of the American success story, continually setting the standards of excellence while expanding his interests in real estate, gaming, sports, and entertainment. In New York City, the Trump signature is synonymous with the most prestigious addresses, including the renowned Trump Tower, the Trump International Hotel and Tower, the Trump World Tower, Trump Park Avenue, and 40 Wall Street. He also has acclaimed golf courses in Florida, California, and New York, and owns the famed Mar-a-Lago Club in Palm Beach, Florida. Trump is the #1 New York Times best-selling author of The Art of the Deal, Surviving at the Top, The Art of the Comeback, and most recently, How to Get Rich. All told, these books have sold millions of copies. In 2004, Mr. Trump co-produced and starred in the NBC hit show The Apprentice, and he is also partners with NBC in the ownership and broadcast rights for the 3 largest beauty competitions in the world. An ardent philanthropist, Trump is involved with numerous civic and charitable organizations.